Well, I'm here today, folks. My voice is a little bit raspy from being sick and stuff, but I'm still doing my show. I missed the last few days, which has been kind of crazy because between trying to get some sleep and going to work and stuff, it's been a little bit rough. And as you can tell, I'm still under the weather, but I'm still here. I wanted to continue on with this subject of consciousness, and I'm going to do so. I want to go into some of the administrations. And the first one, of course, is the administration of conscience. We speak of an administration, not dispensation, of conscience, because this was the leading innovation which characterized the era from the sin of Adam until the deluge. Before this, God had been personally present with the primal pair in the Garden of Eden. Therefore, this close relationship, or this close fellowship, was broken. God withdrew. He gave no law to guide them. They and their offspring were left to themselves. All that they had was the knowledge of good and evil, and the consciousness that wrongdoing was displeasing to God. That is conscience. This was the slender link that united them to God. It was the basic principle of his dealings with them. The object of the entire arrangement was to display the inability of mankind to get on without God, even though they knew good and evil and had conscience as a constant monitor to urge them to do good. It is necessary for God's glory and the good of all creation that man's infirmity and depravity should be displayed by a series of demonstrations, in each succeeding one of which he is found under more favorable conditions. In order to do this, God alters his relations to mankind, or a select part of it, so as to create a new and more likely situation. These are called administrations. In each there is a special dispensations. There are special dispensations. That is divine gifts. But these should not be confounded with the administrations, for the dispensations usually continue while the administrations change. Besides, if we think of administrations as dispensations, we will always try to characterize them by his gifts rather than by that which characterizes God's relation to man and governs the mode of his dealings with the race. In my yieldingness, I allowed myself to be drawn into this confusion to some extent when I changed the name of the first administration from innocence to creation. May I be forgiven this conciliatory error. A special feature of these testings of mankind is the culmination of the gifts in order to make the next trial less severe. Thus, after the knowledge of good and evil was imparted, this was not withdrawn when it failed. It has continued ever since, nor was government repealed when promise and law came on the scene. As a rule, each dispensation, quote unquote, remains as is added to the next gift in order to aid in lightening the next trial. But this rule does not always hold. Rather, it is reversed when the present grace gives place to indignation. And that's what's happening now. We're living in a day of grace, in a day of salvation and a day of grace. When that's removed, then indignation comes. In order to show what man is, a series of situations is needed in which he fails under continual tests, each less exacting than the last. Dispensations, God's gifts, are all intended to make the conditions more favorable and give man a better chance of success. The resultant condition is what characterizes the administration. Thus, as a result of the gift of authority, we have the administration of government. Once we see the divine purpose in these succeeding changes, all of the series become intelligible, and we have the desire to crystallize our findings by giving each a name. We could call the first no knowledge of good and evil, and thus keep within the divine vocabulary. As our word innocent is only a shorter way of saying this, we have no conscience about it. So with the next administration, we might call it with a knowledge of good and evil. But conscience expresses the same thing and saves 6 words and 6 hyphens. It may not appear so at first glance, but the testing in Eden was the severest trial that will ever come to mankind, because our innocent ancestors had no knowledge of good and evil. I strongly object to the use of non-scriptural terms, so I discarded innocent. But we need an expression which condenses this fact in a single term. So I am strongly inclined to restore innocence, and will hold on to conscience, for it is its complement, describing as it does those who know good and evil. Without the knowledge of good and evil, mankind is as weak as water, and the bond between it and God can be snapped almost without effort or delay. So it happened at the very first trial. As we will see, this test finds man less prepared than any subsequent one. And the reason for this is the absence of conscience to warn Eve before she offended the Creator. Never since has man been so helpless except in the years of his infancy. With the knowledge of good and evil, man was provided with a conscience, and so had a constant deterrent within himself. It took the place of God's personal presence and did not leave him helpless when he was away. But this inward restraint, this divine voice which indwelt each one, was not sufficient to keep the race from utter depravity. Man, left to the restraint of a conscience, corrupted himself beyond remedy. This is a great lesson to learn. In Eden there was no restraint, but the presence of and prohibition of God. In his absence, this failed to keep man from destroying himself. Then comes conscience, then government by his fellows, until we come to government by Christ himself and an iron club. All restraints fail when man is left to himself. Only the power and presence of God can preserve man. Okay, I'm going to stop there because the next one is the administration of government, and I'm going to continue on here until it goes right up to judgment and kingdom administrations. The secret administration of grace is the beauty one, because that is the wonderful one that keeps us going during this wicked eon. The administration of grace we live in right now. Okay. I still feel like crap, but Lord willing, I'll get better. It doesn't help when you work and you try to sleep too. I woke up today at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. But rest is important. Rest and liquids and my cannabis, it's all helping. It's taking some time. I say I love you all, and I will see you tomorrow. And you have a wonderful day.